Alright, I've teased you long enough, I put it on long enough. This week, I tested out a free-to-play MMO for the PC by way of Steam. It was released on Steam on the 22nd of June. It is published by Area Games, who've done such games as War Thunder, S4 League, Digimon Masters, L Sword, Age of Conan, Shaya, and the ever controversial Scarlet Blade. Well, this one is not a controversial MMO. It is called Echo of Soul, created by a team called Envious, Nvius, and like I said, released on Steam on the 22nd. I should let you know I played on the North American server, Cerefa. When you go in to initially create your character, there are 5 different classes that you can choose from. And they actually show various different subpaths that you can do on each character once you get to level 10 to help you get a more idea of what you eventually want to end up playing on this character. You have the warrior, which is, of course, your typical melee focus. You have the rogue, which you have the guardian, which is kind of akin to, say, a druid. If you play any tabletop RPGs or like Diablo or something, kind of akin to a druid. The sorceress, which is a wizard. And the archer, which is kind of the ranger character. And it should be noted that for some weird reason, these classes are gender locked. So if you create a warrior or a rogue, that means you're creating a male character. If you create a guardian, sorceress, or archer, you're playing a female character. Why they gender lock the classes, I have no idea. But like I said, there are two different paths that you can do. They do have difficulty rankings on each of the paths, but really the difference between them has to do with whether you want to be attack focused or whether you want to, get into parties and help people out. So for the warrior, the level 10 paths are Berserker and Protector. The duelist and the assassin are the paths for the rogue. So you've got, upfront fighter and then sneaky fighter for the assassin. Stormguard and Earthguard, which change the different kinds of things that you can use for your guardian, the kind of spells you can use, the kind of buffs that you can give out. Fire Mage and Ice Mage, which of course have different elemental spells and different things that you can do to affect your foes by extension. And then the Huntress and the Bard. The Bard is really kind of the closest thing you're going to get to playing a cleric kind of character in this particular MMO. Whereas the Huntress is the more typical, bow-focused ranger. The character creation was kind of detailed, but not super, super detailed. One thing I noticed, though, is that while you have, different sample outfits that I imagine are probably for sale in the cash shop, that you can try on your characters, you don't get to keep them in-game, and you can't change the colors of the clothes that you wear. So you're stuck with whatever color your equipment of choice happens to be. The setting for this is based on Norse mythology, which of course has never been done before in any game ever. No, that's not a common well for fantasy to dive into at all. Also, one little side note here, I should note that I had to play this game on the lowest settings possible because my laptop sucks. Controls for this are just basically your standard. You've got your main, you can move around with WASD, look around with the mouse, you can click on enemies with your mouse to target them. You've got your number keys, which can be used as a quick bar. You've got your function keys, which can be used as a quick bar. It's just, the standard stuff. Yeah, pretty much, if you've ever played an MMO, ever, you're gonna be familiar with how this game controls. Unless the only MMO you've ever played is Neverwinter, in which case it's gonna be kind of funky. Also, one little note. I did keep an eye on the general chat just to kind of get a vibe for what the players would be like in this. Unfortunately, general chat was largely quiet, except for gold spammers. If you could find some way to take all of the gold spammers out of the chat room, it would be almost entirely dead silent aside from the rare guild invites broadcast. It's weird. On the one hand, no elitist fuckheads telling people, hey, you suck, or anything like that. But on the other hand, it lets the gold spammers have full reign over the chat. If you go through the basic tutorial quests, I found just going through the tutorial quest and doing maybe a few extra ones here and there, and maybe killing a few extra enemies here and there, easily took me to level 6. And by the time that you get done in the next town after the tutorial area, you will be around about at the area where you can pick your class path, if you haven't already. The one kind of unique thing to this MMO, though, is that when you kill enemies, you collect items called Chaos Souls of various different types. And there's a mechanic that you can, when you're basically at home base or in a town, you can purify these, and these purified souls you can use to cast a buffing spell on yourself. There are 4 different buffing spells. One I think affects attack, one affects defense, one affects evasion, and I forget what the other one does. But it's usually 2 Chaos Souls convert down with purification, solo purification, into 1 purified soul. But if you're in a party with people, you can cooperatively do the purification, and it'll be 1-to-1. If some chance you do happen to die, which didn't really happen all that often to me, but it did happen a lot in this one area that I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But if you do die, you will respawn back at your last checkpoint, or for lack of a better phrase, and your equipment durability will be reduced a little bit. You can fix your stuff at shops for a pretty nominal fee. I think when I really started dying, I was able to repair all my equipment for 8 silver a pop. Your currencies are silver and gold. I have no idea what the exchange rate between silver and gold is, because in all the time I played, I had well over 200 silver and still had not made a gold yet. There are some items that you can get, including some that are given to you actually for free as a sign-up bonus, as a free sign-up bonus, that can allow you to revive in place with no penalty. It should be noted that those items do not work in dungeons. If you die in a dungeon, you're going to go back to whatever your last checkpoint is, even if that checkpoint was at the very beginning of the goddamn dungeon, which, as we're going to hear in a little bit, is kind of a little bit of a pain in the ass to deal with sometimes. Once you do have decided on your class path, there are actually skill trees there in each class path that you can actually choose what skills that you focus on, and that provides you a little further customization. So once you reach level 10 and you get into your custom path, your path that you decide to go on, that's really where customizing your character's abilities really comes into play. Each chapter of the story has cutscenes with voice acting, pretty good voice acting actually. The music was kind of typical orchestral fantasy type stuff, but all the voice acting in the game was not too shabby, which not a lot of MMOs use voice acting, and a lot of them that do use voice acting don't use good voice acting. This was not that bad. Whatever quests you're given, be it storyline or side quest or whatever, they're your standard fare. You have your fetch quests where you have to go find an item, which actually you'll have a little icon for on your map, your little mini map that you can easily find. And actually, there will be multiple numbers on your mini map on however many active quests you have going. So you can see, okay, I need to go this area for this quest. I can go to this area for that quest. And if I go to that area, I can get both this quest and that quest done at the same time. Really good system, the way that they did that. I liked that. Of course, yeah, you have your fetch item quest, you have your kill a certain number of enemy quests, and then you have your go here and talk to this person quests. You can do dungeons either as solo or with partying. There is a quick matching feature where you can match up with people of similar level to take on certain dungeons. However, you cannot party up in a solo dungeon, which is going to create a little problem when I start talking about that here in a sec. Like I said, in a dungeon you can't revive in place, and the biggest problem that I had with dungeons, the one dungeon quest that I actually went into, was it was not contiguous. It's not just one long dungeon. There are actually loading zones inside the dungeons. And so instead of, just being able to go straight through to where you need to go, especially if you have multiple quests in there, you actually have to go to a certain point, wait for it to load a little bit, and then go on through the second portion of it. And the only checkpoint for this particular dungeon was at the entrance. So I was in the second part of this dungeon trying to get this one dungeon quest finished to kill this one boss monster. And the problem was, even though I had picked up this one item that is supposed to weaken the boss item, and I managed to use it on the boss, and I was at the recommended level for the dungeon, I could not do shit against this monster. I mean, I was just, fire off a skill, run away. Fire off a skill, run away. And they keep coming at me over and over and over again. And if I had to heal, in order to heal, I had to stop in place to heal, which means the monster would come up to me and kill me while I was trying to heal. I died about 4 or 5 times to that boss monster before I finally decided, you know what? Fuck this. I am taking the quest that I have completed and I'm getting out of here. There is also one kind of optional event. There are various different things that you can do with other people in this game. One of which is, of course, there is PvP. You can duel against other people. For those of you who are, like me, very, very not into player versus player, you can actually set it up to automatically decline a request for PvP. So a little anti-frustration mechanic there. Also, every now and again, a boss monster will pop up somewhere on the map, and you will get a notification that there is a co-op quest to meet various different random people on the map, or everyone on the map, to come in and swarm this boss monster to attack it.
That sounds very similar to Fliff, something like that.
Although, when I did it, as far as I could tell, there were only 2 people in that area at the time, because me and one other person. And I started attacking it first. I was actually taking out a fair amount of its health by itself. Once the other person came in, the thing went down in short order. So the boss I don't know if it scales depending on how many people decide to go after it, but it didn't seem that very hard. I did not get to check out the cash shop, but by all indications from everything else, I imagine it's probably the usual cash shop stuff of, cosmetic things. I think those outfits that you tried out are probably available on the cash shop, and I imagine there are probably also various different buffs that you can get, things to help you help enchantments. You can do kind of a Diablo style, inserting gems into certain pieces of armor. The difference, though, here between the way Diablo does it and the way that Echo of Soul does it is that in Diablo, you can pick any kind of jewel to insert into any piece of armor that has gem sockets. In Echo of Soul, pieces of armor will have sockets keyed to specific kinds of gems. For instance, I got one piece of armor that had an onyx setting in it that you could put onyx in, but if you wanted to put an emerald in, well, you couldn't do it because it wouldn't work. You can't put an emerald into an onyx setting for some reason. But yeah, anyway, I managed to go up to level 12. I don't know if I'll pick it up on a regular basis. Probably not, because I will probably end up looking for something else to look at for next week. The bottom line is that this really is just a typical MMO.
It's fun.
It's very generic. There are worse ones out there by all means. You get in there with a few people that you like and you're able to get a party going, you're probably going to end up having a good time, although you're probably not going to be going through any of the solo dungeon stuff. Like I said, about the only way I can think of that you might have a hard time getting the mechanics of MMO is if the only other MMO you ever played is Neverwinter. It's not bad. I can't say I give it a glowing recommendation by any means, but I wouldn't say it sucks.
Yeah, but I'm so sick of hearing about other MMOs where they're pretty much all the same. You remember when Farmville first came out, Jeremy?
Yeah, in fact, I remember playing games like that.
The whole time management, grow your strawberries, wait a few hours, and you cash it in.
Yeah, I actually played a derivation of that a different company had created.
But that's the problem. There's derivation after derivation after derivation after derivation. It's now been beaten like a dead horse so badly now, it's not even funny.
Well, if you've got something interesting to bring to the party story-wise, then that might cover a multitude of sins. If this had something other than a generic fantasy setting, I can imagine being in this setting as a D&D or Pathfinder setting, or even a Dungeon World setting, but as an MMO, it's just way too generic. And seriously, what the hell is with gender locking the classes? I mean, I've got nothing against playing female characters. Hell, most of my RPG characters, with the exception of the Pokemon games, do tend to be female because I like to play good female characters to counteract, in video games, those dearth of female characters with questionable characterization, if there is any beyond the fact that they have boobs. But it really, I don't get... I mean, what if I wanted to play a female rogue or a female defender? Anyway, that's video games. That's games for this week. Moving on, it's going to be silly news and dumb tweets with a product that really... Why is that a thing?
Hey everyone, this is David. Like what you hear? Check us out on the internet at casualmodepodcast.com, on Facebook at facebook.com/casualmodepodcast, any one of our social media links, and of course, click on the little subscribe button below. Thanks!